Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
Welcome to the GSMC Football Podcast on the GSMC Podcast Network. It is the host with the most because we have two of them. Two hosts here, me and Brice. Brice and me. What do we got going on today, Brice? How are you doing, first of all? It's been a rainy Monday as we're recording this, so, it's been storming. Yeah. Back and forth. I was unsure how the power was going to hold up, but I think we're going to be okay for now.
Yeah, it's been a little stormy, a little rainy. It was a little stormy last night. Got thunderstorms coming through, so hearing these loud thundering sounds sometimes put some fear into you. But
it was necessary for this rain to come. The pollen was getting out of control. Couldn't see half the day. Couldn't breathe the other half. It was getting bad, man.
Yeah, every time we have pollen season around, anytime it rains, it's actually a blessing.
Mm-hmm. So what do we have to talk about today, man? I think we have quite a bit. So let me get out my handy dandy note chart to see what we will be discussing. So we'll be talking about people on the hot seat. Do 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 do. We need game show music on here.
I know, right?
we need some cue music. We'll get on that. But hot seat, which will not just be not just be coaches, but it can be anybody who might be on the hot seat in relative ideology from the NFL. And then we talking about some Big Ben, some Phillip Rivers. Divisional best. So which division has the best what? So positionally, which division has the best positions and thus making them the best division for said position. All right. But very first, we're going to be talking about the Rooney Rule in the NFL. Would you like to kick this off, Mr. Brice?
Yeah. So obviously there's been talks. Obviously the NFL wants more minority coaches, front office staff, etc. And obviously the Rooney Rule was put in place to at least give one minority candidate an opportunity to get a job of that status. But look, lately in the NFL, the number has been starting to go down with minority coaches and front office. So the NFL has started to see this as a slight issue and a slight problem. So they have decided to talk to, obviously the owners, et cetera, and they have first came to the agreement now that instead of just interviewing one, you have to interview at least two minority candidates for a position. And also, I don't know if this is official yet, but they also discussed about if you do end up hiring a minority candidate, you are able to get some draft compensation for that. Obviously, it causes a bit of a debate because some people are like, well, isn't it just the best job available? Best person for the job and et cetera, et cetera. Is there any type of, shunning of certain people from jobs? It's a very fluid situation. And obviously the NFL is just trying to do what they can to put more minority NFL coaches and front office in a position to get jobs. Again, as obviously the NFL is trying to promote diversity within the league in all aspects of their league operations. So, Ethan, when you hear all that, what do you think about all of that and the rule change?
I think that the NFL recognizes it has an issue, but the recognition has been a long time coming because it's been a problem for quite some time. And now, I guess since maybe because of COVID or they have time to think about it now, that they're looking into it. But at the same time, it does feel a little bit like kind of short-sighted to one degree and another degree where it just seems like this is a here, take this sort of approach. And I don't know I just have a hard time believing that anybody who gets picked up in this sort of situation that wasn't already a candidate before is just being set up to fail, right? Mm-hmm. Because it's not like they're offering some sort of lengthy job security or anything like that. And the likelihood of somebody getting picked up, getting brought in to be the head coach somewhere who is of, minority descent or what have you, the likelihood of them staying with that job it just hasn't been good. The turnover between, black coaches and coaches of other minorities is very, very, it fluctuates. There's very hard to find somebody who's really stood the test of time, like Mike Tomlin. Like Mike Tomlin has stood the test of time. Lovie Smith was there for a little while, then he was bounced out of the league after he got Jameis to one of the better records he's had his whole career. Then, of course, we know about, Vance McDonald? Or am I, no, that's the player. Who, he used to coach the Broncos, correct?
Oh, Vance Joseph.
Vance Joseph, yeah, and then he got bounced out shortly afterwards. And now we're seeing, right now with the Chargers, Anthony Lynn, he coaches them right now, but you never know what can happen, right? Like he could be out of there next year.
Yeah, we could be talking about him later on in the show.
Right. So it really does seem like, after the whole Bengals let go of their head coach for years and years and years, and granted, he didn't do anything up there and they gave him all the chance in the world. And then you saw what happened in Cleveland a few years ago, and you're like, okay, he wasn't the coach for them, but neither was Freddie Kitchens. And it doesn't seem like minorities get a large chance to showcase. And I think that's the problem. Like, they are still being overlooked in the hiring process. And the guys that were already, head coaches before still get bumped in the NFL. But newer blood just doesn't seem to break the seams of the NFL coaching ranks. And even in colleges, it's not as much as you would like it to be, but it's still more because there's just more teams available or more programs available.
And we can't forget about what happened back in, I don't remember what year, but remember when Jim Caldwell was the head coach
for the Lions?
Of the Indianapolis Colts. Oh, and he got fired after attending 6th season.
Correct.
So obviously that could be another example of minorities maybe not getting the just getting the good stroke of luck, I guess.
I think they just have, sometimes they get put with unfair expectations that there's just no way you can know they're going to meet or not, and other coaches get the benefit of the doubt. Like later on in the podcast, of course, when we talk about the hot seat, and there's a few coaches that are probably on it that if they were minorities, they'd probably be gone by now. Like, I have a hard time believing that Matt Nagy would not be out of here by now. Like, Trubisky failed, and thus you failed, because they put he was supposed to be the guy that would be the franchise for 15 years plus. And no, you can't blame him for that. But if he was a minority, best believe he would somehow be blamed for it. And that's just kind of how it always plays out. Same thing with the Jets. Right, we still have some hope for Sam Darnold, But how much can we really believe in Adam Gase as a coach? Like, I don't really trust Adam Gase as a coach. Nothing he did in Miami makes me believe I can trust Adam Gase as a coach. But here he is, still doing his thing over there in on the New York Jets. I don't know. It's I don't really know what else to say. Like, Jason Garrett for a long time was in one position.
Mediocre.
And maybe that's just a whole different situation, but there's just no any else where Jason Garrett, one, he would have been fired still long ago, but he still would have held his job longer than some of these guys that I'm seeing that are just not getting the representation or getting the opportunity to put on representation for the league on that level of scale. You know, for so many players to be of minority descent and to not have representation at the ranks of coaching is weird and also kind of disheartening, especially when you see stuff from the XFL where there was a lot of black coaches in the XFL. Let me say not a lot because there only were 8 teams, but you know, there was a real good amount of African American coaches and black coaches and from all different lengths of the coaching staff, not just head coach, but all different walks of the coaching tree. So like offensive coordinators, defensive coordinators, training staff. There are a lot of black people out there, man. So that's why one of the reasons why I was really into the XFL too is because it gave people a chance to see what these guys can do on a microscope other than the college ranks. And the college ranks can be kind of weird because if you're not a top 25 team, people don't care about you outside of your local city, local town.
Yeah, that's definitely true, man. And it's just going to be interesting to see, you know, since this rule's coming into effect, if it actually does change the landscape of how many minority coaches and front office personnel actually gets hired over the next few years, because I know they're going to be looking to see if the number increases. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens there.
Right. But let's go ahead, take a quick break, and then we'll get into the hot seat.
You really can't underestimate the importance of having the right creative work for your brand or your product. Whether it's a logo, a website, a book cover, or an ad campaign, you really need a quality design to make that big difference pop and deliver your overall engagement and success in a competitive market. That's where Design Crowd comes in. Design Crowd has over 750,000 designers from Sydney to San Francisco ready to help you with awesome creative ideas. They make crowdsourcing work for you. So if you need a logo or you're working on your creative branding, you can go to designcrowd.com and post a brief describing the design you need. And then within about 2 to 7 days, you'll receive up to over 100 different designs from designers around the world. Then you pick the best design and approve payment to the designer. So you're only paying for the design that you want. It takes a lot of the guesswork out of freelancing and out of crowdsourcing. And you don't have to be a huge company like Harvard Business School to use Design Crowd, although they have used it as well. You can start a project on Design Crowd for as little as $99. And if you go right now to designcrowd.com/health and wellness or enter the promo code health and wellness on their website, then our health and wellness listeners will receive up to $150 off of your design project. That's designcrowd.com/health and wellness or entering that promo code health and wellness.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's GSMCpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Okay, Brice's hot seat time. Any player, position, coach, coaching rank, GM. I guess that's where all we can go, I suppose, huh? From any of those fields, where are you seeing people on the hot seat? Where does this take you? What's the first name that comes to your mind when you think, man, I don't know how long this guy has left?
I think this is one of the easier ones. And to me,
oh no,
it's Bill O'Brien.
Oh, okay. So I thought we were already heading towards the murkier places in the league. But Bill O'Brien, okay, let me know. Tell me about it.
Yeah, man, because think about it. You done traded your best wide receiver. You've made some moves that people question. Houston has been lucky to be winning games like they have because they have Deshaun Watson, DeAndre Hopkins, J.J. Watt. They got those core stars, and then they always have holes everywhere else. Now you then took away the offense's best weapon, outside of Deshaun Watson, and DeAndre Hopkins. So if Will Fuller and them can't stay healthy, and if they can't score, and if Houston ends up having a losing season, especially in the AFC South not being a tough division in recent memory, you could be 8-8 and win a division some years. If they come out and they have a losing record, the team looks sloppy, Deshaun has a career worse, I mean, if I'm the owner, since there's no GM, if I'm the owner, I got to fire him because you broke the team down and we're losing. And then everybody wants me to fire you anyway. So now I have a reason to fire you even more than I did before because technically you can't fire him if they make it to the playoffs. Like, okay, make it to the playoffs. I can't really fire the guy. But if they don't, you have every reason in the world to now. Like I said, there's much pressure around that everybody wants him gone. Listen, listen, Bill O'Brien is the GM. Deshaun Watson's contract is up. He's going to be getting close to $200 million. If we hear that Bill O'Brien is trying to limit Deshaun Watson from getting paid, I mean, what else can you really do? You got to fire him. Because now you're going to have Deshaun get disgruntled. You already got people tweeting at Deshaun talking about, you need to leave, man. They don't care about you. So
yeah, the Twitter streets aren't happy right now for
exactly.
Text.
So listen, if he don't produce this year, if the team isn't good this year, and more players start getting disgruntled or they start going to the owner and say, we don't like this man, it looks like it will be a very dim and bleak future for Bill O'Brien after this season.
Okay, I can respect this decision. I think that one makes a lot of sense. I think that for me, I don't know if Bill O'Brien is really on the hottest of seats because, he still is the GM and the coach.
Mm-hmm.
He might, because I think what would happen before anything is that they'd take away his GMing capabilities and they'd hire like a real GM and he would not be the player or he wouldn't be the coach and the GM anymore before the whole, let's just get rid of him as a coach thing happens. But they got to see what this Brandon Cook stuff and see what all these moves end up being. And if it's a flop, then of course you won't hear the end of it from them. But if it isn't, then they'll just 9 times out of 10 they'll just be around all together again, and he'll just be doing what he does, Bill O'Brien. I think who's on the hot seat right now, I say it's kind of, they turned it up. It's no longer on simmer. It's on 3 right now. I think Josh Allen is on a 3, my boy. I think Josh Allen, unfortunately for Bills Mafia. Now I think they have confidence that he will improve as a player, as a passer, as a decision maker with the football. But boy, if he does not, they already see what they need to do because he's still on his rookie deal. They don't have to pay him any large sums of money. They can move off him if they feel like this is no longer a viable option for our team. They can move past him. I would not like to see that because I think Josh Allen has some real talent, but that playoff game ended off real sourly for all intents and purposes after that trick play where everybody was hype. It was like, oh man, the Bills, look at them. They're getting fancy out there. And then they, oh man, look at the Bills. Yeah, it turned like that real quick and in a hurry. And it's funny how we end up talking about two of the wild card teams from last year potentially being on the hot seat, but that's just where I'm feeling like I feel like the rest of their team is capable of making a deeper run in the AFC this year. They were capable of making a deeper run last year if it weren't for the lack of ball control that came around when it happened. So I think he is one that has to really showcase that he can improve. And I'm going to go back to back real quick. I'm going to take this one off your hands, sir. Dan Quinn is on the hot seat, man. And he's been on the hot seat for a better half of 10 months, really, if you really think about it.
Yeah.
He
the whole fan base that turned against him.
The fan base has. The team may not have, though. The team definitely showed out for him and said, we like our coach. He's our guy. But at the same time, the brotherhood can only do so much. Because once he's gone, the ideology of the brotherhood goes with him. So Dan Quinn has been holding on really by a thread right now. And let's say they come out real sloppy or they come out in this Derek Cutter offense and it just doesn't look right. Like, what's the best they can go and he still would get fired mid-season? Because I know Thomas, or what's his name, Arthur Blank is not the type to fire someone mid-season. However, if things got drastic, if things got real bad, how long?
I mean, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if they make this a Ron Rivera situation where he goes to him and says, you need to win this number of games. And if we don't hit this number, you're out of here. And no ifs, ands, or buts. So, because obviously with the talent that we possess, clearly I'm thinking, okay, he has to have a winning season. But if we had to start off out the gate, listen, if we start off like 1-5, he's out of there. Because at that point, it's just like, screw the whole winning, being 6-2 down the stretch. Like, we lost again. And so we're going to have to, again, this is where low key, that extra wild card spot could help us if we go like 9-7 and we get in, and that's going to save his job. So,
but that wouldn't be enacted until the season next year, like not this coming, but the one afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things where I think, listen, he started slow the last 2 years, so I'm sure Mr. Blank's not going to be okay with a slow start because he just knows if we're going to start slow again, I know how this is going to end, so I might just need to go ahead and make the move and just go ahead and restart it. Honestly, with COVID happening, low-key keeping Dan Quinn was basically a good move because sometimes bringing a new head coach with this type of stuff can be a little wishy-washy, but if he doesn't cut it next year, then he'll probably be gone. If he can stay competitive, he can keep his job. If it's like, oh, yeah, we suck out the gate, he's out of there.
Okay, so I think that's what most people feel like anyway, is that if he can't get it done within the first 6 weeks of the season, then he's probably got to start packing his bags, I would assume, right?
Yeah, basically. Because it's just, what other reason do you have to keep him at that point?
The only way is that if Matt Ryan or Julio argue for his case to stay. But I think they've done that already. I think that's already been made, that they want Dan Quinn still.
Outside of that, it's just like there's really nothing else you can do at that point, man. Listen, if we can't get the job done, I appreciate it, Matt. I appreciate it, Julio, but he got to get out of here.
And, he hasn't had the best end of luck when it comes to his defense. His defense doesn't stay healthy a lot as far as the Falcons are concerned. What's the over-under that you'll see, your boy in the safety position, Keanu Neal. Yeah, like if Keanu Neal goes down again, one, he's probably not going to be on the team anymore. Two, that's just somebody that you guys, another secondary piece that you have to take into account. And I don't know if you guys have looked at, potentially finding a guy to fill in that void in the offseason or in the draft.
Obviously the key for me is what they're going to do with KZ, because he could play safety and corner. And obviously Ricardo's playing free, but KZ can play free. I don't know if they want to switch over any of them over to strong. You know, Keanu reminds me of William Moore, if you remember him.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, he started out good for us, and he had injuries, and that derailed his career. And obviously, Keanu, again, it looked like he could be a star safety. Then in two major season-ending injuries, if he might end up not being in the league if he suffers another one. Again, it's also like the Sean Witherspoon effect. It was a good linebacker, kept getting season-ending injuries, and then you saw he eventually came out of the league. So we haven't had the most success in the past with very good defensive players staying healthy through their career with us.
Right. Well, let's take a break and we'll get more into another guy who has had a little bit of problem staying healthy.
You really can't underestimate the importance of having the right creative work for your brand or your product. Whether it's a logo, a website, a book cover, or an ad campaign, you really need a quality design to make that big difference pop and deliver your overall engagement and success in a competitive market. That's where Design Crowd comes in. Design Crowd has over 750,000 designers from Sydney to San Francisco ready to help you with awesome creative ideas. They make crowdsourcing work for you. So if you need a logo or you're working on your creative branding, you can go to designcrowd.com and post a brief describing the design you need. And then within about 2 to 7 days, you'll receive up to over 100 different designs from designers around the world. Then you pick the best design and approve payment to the designer. So you're only paying for the design that you want. It takes a lot of the guesswork out of freelancing and out of crowdsourcing. And you don't have to be a huge company like Harvard Business School to use Design Crowd, although they have used it as well. You can start a project on Design Crowd for as little as $99. And if you go right now to designcrowd.com/health and wellness or enter the promo code health and wellness on their website, then our health and wellness listeners will receive up to $150 off of your design project. That's designcrowd.com/health and wellness or entering that promo code health and wellness.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Okay, so Pittsburgh, the signal caller is back. That's what Juju's saying as a video surfaced from the Pittsburgh Steelers Twitter account about their boy Big Ben, the clock tower, the big Bambino, the big guy, the man that just doesn't seem to go down because he's like a large oak tree. Big Ben is back throwing the football, and he was outside. He was filmed outside throwing to James Conner and Juju Smith and the likes. So he's not 100% obviously, but he looks like he might be on pace for his comeback tour into this season. So I ask you, Brice, what do you think you can expect from Big Ben at this point in his career, knowing that he is in the same category as a Rivers, a Breeze, a Brady, as far as age is concerned? And also the idea of, you can't count them out all the way because they've been the best in their respective positions for quite some time.
Yeah, it's interesting to see what happens with Big Ben this year, because Big Ben even though he got hurt in the beginning of last year, you know, I don't know how good their offense will be because I don't know if they have the weapons to be what they used to be. Because we still don't know if Juju's that good because his first year as a number one, even though he did have not the best quarterbacks, was not good. You had a couple other guys.
He went down though too, right? He didn't play.
Yeah, he had a couple of injuries too, so obviously that adds on to the question marks with him. They had a couple of young receivers last year that play well in spots, but we don't know again how they would play, you know, with Big Ben back. And obviously we have to also see where Big Ben is. Is he going to be able to stay healthy? Is he going to be the same Big Ben as old? And everything. Because listen, Pittsburgh, if you look at it, defensively, they're probably one of the top defenses, if not the top defense in the NFL in a lot of people's mind, based off especially what happened last year, seeing how dominating they had to be just to even have a chance to make the playoffs. Now you get Big Ben back. If Juju can stay healthy, you know, Connor, they drafted some guys. Maybe they can get more continuity offensively. Maybe they don't even have to really be the old Pittsburgh Steelers who could drop 30 on you every game. Maybe just getting 24 is enough with that defense. So it's going to be interesting to really see how it all comes together on the offensive side of the ball because, you know, Pittsburgh really, again, is in a position, even though they're in a tough division, are in position to be one of the better teams in the AFC, but it just really depends on the health of Big Ben and how Big Ben is coming back. Because obviously, you know, we don't know if Big Ben's going to fall off a cliff this year. We don't know. Because remember, we technically haven't really seen him play except for 2 years, almost, by the time the season starts. So it's going to be definitely something we got to keep an eye on with Pittsburgh, because obviously I believe that how Big Ben plays is going to be determine the success of the Pittsburgh Steelers season overall.
Mm-hmm. And they could decide to say we're going to take a New Orleans Saints approach, right? When Drew Brees 2 years ago, he's been a different player since then, right? He's been more efficient, but that offense is not him slinging the football 40 yards down the field anymore. It's more 20 yards and under, and he's just trying to make the best play available, and he's relying a lot on the run game, especially when Mark Ingram was there. And I could imagine that, you know, he's going to try and rely on James Conner quite a bit to get this offense open and going, because defenses didn't respect the fact that Duck Hodges and Mason Rudolph were throwing the football around against him, right? But you still have to, at least you have to give Roethlisberger the benefit of the doubt that he can throw all around on you, and you don't want him to open up your defense that way, so you rather try and focus on the run game. And if that happens, then, you know, it's like a chess match. And if they can not have him be the usual gunslinger anymore, where he's just lobbing it 60 yards downfield, because, you know, that arm strength eventually is going to fade. He's not going to be able to throw the ball as far as you would like him to, or as he used to be. So it's going to definitely he's going to have to change his game around. I'm sure he already knows that. And if they aren't going to do that, then it's just a matter of time, because like we saw with Brett Favre those years ago, he couldn't sling it anymore and he was making bad decisions. And then he got to, you know, the Vikings, where he just had one more year left of real high level quarterback play, high enough to be in the league. And then it just kind of faded out and he just wasn't able to do it anymore. And eventually that's coming for all these old quarterbacks, all these old guys, as we're maybe talking about Phillip Rivers in a similar situation as well, except for he wasn't hurt. That the time, like Father Time waits for no man, and they are no exception. And the new generation is coming, no matter how much we want it to slow down, because these guys are getting older and older as we do. So Rodgers is coming to an end sooner rather than later. Matt Ryan is no spring chicken. He's 35, but you know, you feel like, because you only see Breeze, Brady, Roethlisberger, Phillip Rivers, because they're their own different type of class. And, you know, Matt came in at a different time after them, but he's still pretty old, right? He's still, for quarterbacks, him and Rodgers are still pretty up there. Everybody else is pretty young. I would have, like, the way it makes me feel, like, I don't know who has a quarterback that's not kind of a young, upcoming prospect, maybe besides, like, when Carolina had Cam, like, we forget Cam was in his 30s. Like, Cam was, like, 30, 31 when he was trying to come back, but they cut him. So the league is getting younger by the day. Mm-hmm. But like I said, I think that they will be able to figure some things out. It's just a matter of time because, like you corrected me before we started the next segment, that the playoff structure that they put in place is actually for this season and seasons to come. So they could make a wild card. I'm not saying that because they could have made it last year because they were 8-8 with that offense that they ran.
I think if it was in place last year, they would have made it as the 7th team in their conference.
And that was an accomplishment of its own. That's like a testament to Mike Tomlin and their coaching staff to be able to hold afloat for 8 games with the offensive inefficiency and inconsistencies of injuries and all across the board that the Steelers dealt with last season. Now, hopefully they can get Juju healthy. Hopefully they can get James Conner healthy, and hopefully Big Ben can look like Big Ben of usual this upcoming season rather than a shell of himself that a lot of Steelers fans are hoping not to see because, they didn't really set themselves up for, if Big Ben really can't go, are we really just going to stick with Mason Rudolph? Like, I can't imagine fans are like, yeah, I think Mason may have it because I don't think he has it. And I don't think a lot of fans think he has it either.
Yeah, man, it's going to be interesting because, you bring it up Mason, they're going to have to make a decision eventually. When are you going to draft that future quarterback? When are you going to go get that next guy after Ben? Because, remember a couple years ago, Ben made it seem like he would have retired then. And you still don't know where his head is for retiring. Every year is a question. So that's something that Pittsburgh may have to definitely look into doing pretty soon here, is getting ready for future after Big Ben.
Which is what they should be doing. It's necessary. It's how you keep your franchise going. And honestly, I feel like they should have taken a quarterback now, like this draft. But maybe they're just trying to see what the season turns out to be. If things come out to a dud, they try and go get Trevor Lawrence or something. I don't know.
Sure.
That seems to be the default plan that we think everybody's going to try and do, right? Is just to go out there and go and try and get Trevor Lawrence.
Nobody giving love to Justin Fields. Like, he's not a guy that people look at as a franchise quarterback in next year's draft as well.
Well, I would even say that. It's just that there's more question marks for Justin Fields than there are Trevor Lawrence, and I would assume that Trevor Lawrence is the first quarterback off the board in next year's draft unless something crazy happens, like, a Joe Burrow sighting part 2 where somebody else comes out. And that's if we even have the college football season in general, so we don't even know. Like, if that doesn't happen, then what happens? Like, do they just get to graduate? Or, I'm sorry, do they just get to declare? Or do they have to wait?
They only got tape from literally this past year, no tape from the current year. So the big board you have now literally is like, we can't really move anybody up or down. Literally, it's just the exact same thing.
Right. But let's take a break and we'll get into some Indianapolis Colts some Charger stuff.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts, past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
So there's been a report that Phillip Rivers might be intending to play multiple years with the Colts. So it went pretty rocky last year with the Chargers, and they mutually parted ways, and his family moved back to Southern California, they moved from Southern California and to be in Florida, and now he's pursuing employment in Indiana. He signed a 1-year, $25 million deal with the Colts. And it does feel like some people think he might be trying to play multiple years depending on how the season goes. And I guess that's what all these guys are doing. They just say, well, at the end of the season, we'll see how I feel. And that might be how a player's perspective might be at their age. But as a franchise, I don't know if the Colts want to play that game, you know? Like, do they really want to keep saying, like, we really want to give Phillip Rivers 2 years here? Especially in the AFC that's basically has two teams that are on top and everybody else is kind of on sort of equal footing in a way, if you know what I'm saying. Like, there's not a clear number 3 yet, even though we should be thinking that, you know, the Titans are the clear number 3, but even they are somebody who you can't really say I 100% believe in, right? Because they haven't been proven. They haven't proved it another time, to me at least. That's how I always see it. You have to be able to prove it. Like, if the Steelers were at tip-top shape, they would be the number 3, in my opinion. What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, in regards to Phillip, I mean, the Colts only signed him to a 1-year deal, I believe. So, obviously, they didn't have to make a decision. We want to re him up another year. So, he could be potentially maybe forced into retirement. Even if he has a decent year, there may be a team that'd be like, well, he didn't play bad, so we can maybe squeeze another year out of him. Because, you know, you try to squeeze everything you can out of somebody till literally they have nothing left. But that would very much depend on his performance. This season, if they even consider paying him that type of money, you could give Jacob Eason another year to learn instead of probably putting him out there as the starting quarterback the next year for the Colts. But that's something we'll have to check on. In terms of the number 3 team in the AFC, I mean, it could be Pitt if they were at peak form, could be Tennessee. You know, there's really not a team in the AFC, as you said, that really is there. It could be Buffalo, maybe. You know, Buffalo could potentially. Because I look at Buffalo and Pittsburgh kind of in the same boat a little bit. Like, both great defensive teams, very good head coaches. You know, they kind of have a similar kind of offense. They want to run the ball, then try to, like, open it up with the passing game. So those teams definitely are maybe 3A and 3B. Obviously, a team, if they can get everything together, if they can be what they truly have the talent to be, then obviously another team you have to throw into the conversation is Cleveland, because they have the talent to be the 3rd best team in the AFC. We just don't know what Baker is going to do. We don't know what's going to happen with Odell. We don't know what's going to happen with the new coaching staff and et cetera. So there's a lot of what ifs. There's a lot of we'll have to sees within the AFC after Baltimore and Kansas City. And then even within the division of Kansas City, you know, you got teams that got better. You don't know how good Denver is going to be. People think they're going to make a jump. You know, San Diego, they have talent. It's not like this team's like bad on paper. It's just in Oakland. I mean, yeah, they may look like a mess, but they're intriguing because they're in Vegas. So there's a lot of things that the AFC has to really play out during the season. And I could see that playoff race being really intense at the end of the season in AFC. You might have 5-6 teams still combining for a playoff spot within the last 2 weeks of the season.
Yeah, and there's going to be a lot of race. Like, the race is going to be, right, and alongside that, I would have to imagine that the Colts, as of right now, is playing with house money because they still have Jacoby Brissett on roster. So if things go south, they can just look into him and say, we'll just hold on to him for a year. Or if they really go south, you know, they go find a quarterback. They can maybe get into the Trevor Lawrence Bowl if things just really, really turn way south. But they built this team to compete now. So it makes sense that they want to get a quarterback to compete now. And if Phillip is not the guy that we'd want him to be in a year or so, you got to let him walk. But that mean, I always thought Jacoby Brissett played pretty well last year. And I don't think they've given up on Jacoby yet, still potentially being the guy to be there in a few years or so. And maybe this is just a chance for them to really try and maybe just compete at a high level one more time and continue to be able to build without having to overpay somebody to play the quarterback position and really, really stack out their team overall and do what's the smart way to build a successful franchise nowadays, which is, not pay a quarterback because you get him on a rookie deal. You end up hitting on a rookie quarterback, and everybody else gets paid around them, and you can bring in free agents and more quality draft picks and things like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's usually how it goes. I mean, the quarterback situation is probably one of the most fluid situations in any roster, any team, because, like I said, unless you just have that definitive guy, you never know if you're having to make a change next year. You never know if you're having to draft. You never know when you feel like you might need to draft for the future. It's all a different organizational decision from different organizations and just what they think is happening, Obviously, I think a team that usually has a very well-constructed team usually feels like we can maybe draft a guy and he can play sooner because we have pieces around him, where if you're in the situation of a very terrible team on roster-wise, it's a little risky, even though you need one, putting him out there so soon. So, Jacoby could be someone who they could keep and put back out there again potentially, because I think they're going to go into the season with 3 quarterbacks. And I think Jacoby will be the backup. So if Phil Rivers does struggle or gets hurt, Jacoby has another chance to potentially win over the coaching staff and the entire city of Indianapolis, and they can embrace him as the starting quarterback for years to come.
And I don't know if that's his destiny, right? I'm not sitting here saying that Jacoby is, in fact, should be the man. I just think that he played well enough to get another chance at trying to be the man. And they brought in Phillip Rivers because I guess they realized that they weren't going to get Tom Brady. So they thought they still need to go get somebody to go try and win now. So they elected to go get Phillip Rivers off the market, which is fine. But it wouldn't be something that I would have initially thought they would do. So now they just have Jacoby on a pretty solid contract for somebody who is going to be a backup. And they can't go this is just another situation where, Cam Newton could have probably landed here, but it just didn't work out for him that way because at the time he was looking to get traded and nobody was going to trade for Cam. But I guarantee you, if Cam Newton was a free agent and the Colts had a chance to go get Cam, they might have done it. You don't think so?
I mean, yeah, I don't see why they wouldn't. I mean, I think that might work better for what they're doing in Indianapolis, especially since they want to be grinded out kind of team. Cam's kind of been on grinded out teams in Carolina. So I think that would fit where Phillip, his issue is he could be a turnover machine, and he's not also very athletic. So he's just kind of a sitting duck back there in the pocket. If they can't protect, it's not going to be a good day. Where Cam is mobile, he can move out of the pocket, make plays, extend plays, and that could maybe have benefited the team more overall.
For sure. Maybe it definitely would have been interesting, and I think the Colts would have a bit more national interest because I think Cam brings more national interest than Phillip Rivers does. And that's just how it would be. The Colts would be kind of on the map again as far as people tuning into them because the Colts have kind of fell into the okay, they're all right, and we know the AFC, that whole AFC division is just oh yeah, I know they're there, but hey, you haven't really been it since Peyton, and even when you had Luck, we knew Luck was good, but it wasn't like Luck was otherworldly, right? He was doing crazy stuff all the time. Like, he would go to the playoffs and then he would perform well, or they'd lose, or he wouldn't perform well, and they'd still pull out the win. It was just a weird time for post Peyton Manning Indianapolis. But let's go ahead and take a break, and we'll get into the next segment.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Okay, Brice, so you came up with this idea. Go ahead and explain it to the fans out there, to the listeners. The listeners, Brice, the listeners.
I guess my people. So today we're going to play a game. We're just going to, we're going to talk about which divisions have the best position players in the NFL. Obviously quarterback, wide receiver, maybe defensive lines, things like that. Because obviously, you never know. Maybe a division in the NFL right now is quarterback. Well, not quarterback you technically, but it's the class of quarterbacks in all of the divisions in the NFL. So, now that we've got all that out the way, let's go ahead and get into it right now, Mr. Ethan. How's it sound? How's that sound?
Let's do it, man. I'm ready. Let's go.
All right. So we're just gonna start obviously with the main one. Which division in your opinion has the best group of starting quarterbacks in the entire NFL?
The NFC South, and it's really not close. That's the answer. No other answer really exists. Really, that's it. And you got Drew Brees, got Tom Brady, Teddy Bridgewater is serviceable, and you also have Matt Ryan, who is a top tier quarterback as well. So 3 of them are top tier. The other one is a quarterback that you can win with. So it's really, there's no other division in football that has that level of quarterback play in the same division. They play each other 2 times a year. Like, it's been a very long time, if any time at all, that this has been the case. Wouldn't you say? Like, yeah, maybe one year in the NFC East when all 4 of the teams were quality. Like, there always seems to be one team in the NFC East that's never really good sometimes. But when Eli was on it, and, they had Tony Romo, and Philadelphia, they went through McNabb, and then they went through Vic, Foles.
Kevin Cobb.
Yeah, that was tough. But, and, the Redskins, they've had some moments. That rookie RG3 year was something serious that they still talk about to this day. It was, it changed the mood of the city.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man, I have to agree with you. NFC South is, I think, the class of quarterbacks. Obviously, all quarterbacks except Teddy Bridgewater have been MVPs, have been an MVP quarterback in this league. And obviously, you basically with Brady coming, now you've got 7 Super Bowls in the division. And because Drew won one. So obviously they also have a lot of history and prestige in the division. And, it's one of those things, man. That's why they say the NFC South this year is going to be a bloodbath, because every team got a quarterback who can play, and every team trying to get up with pass rushers, and it's going to be a feast down there in the NFC South. But yeah, the quarterbacks reign supreme in the NFC South. Now, which group or which division do you think has the best group of running backs in all of the NFL?
Now, okay, this is kind of tough, but I'm going to stick with the NFC again, and I am going to say that, well, now it really depends, right? If Todd Gurley is healthy and we get a good Todd, it's the NFC South again. You know, Kamara's in there, and his backup is no slouch either, right? He's no slouch. And, of course, you know, Christian McCaffrey is the best running back in football on his good day. So Christian McCaffrey is there. And then, of course, you know, I'm not the biggest fan of Ronald Jones, but Ronald Jones is a serviceable running back. I don't know, man. It's a good division for offense altogether. Like, that's one of the better offensive divisions in football, especially after this offseason. But to not just make this an NFC South thing, the NFC East running backs are pretty good too. And by pretty good, I mean pretty good. Like, let's see, the rookie that Philly got last year really turned it up in the second half of the season. And, you know, they actually have a pretty solid group of running backs, you know. I think Jordan Howard's still on that team, if I'm not mistaken.
He's on Miami now.
He's on Miami now. Okay, never mind. Jordan Howard is not there anymore. But Jay Ajayi, is he still there?
I have absolutely no idea. I don't know what happened to that man.
Philly had so many running backs.
They still got Miles Sanders and Scott from last year.
Yeah, Boston Scott. And, of course, you know about Ezekiel Elliott, the bell cow, and then the other bell cow in New York, and Saquon. Those two alone hold that division together from the running back perspective. And AP still gets it done. Somehow, some way, Father Time just keeps churning the legs. So he's out there.
You can't sleep on Darius, guys. He's a guy who...
I can, because he's been asleep for a long time. He's been on the bed because he hasn't got on the field very much because of health reasons and all that stuff. But
yeah, that's true.
Outside of that, I really can't say there's one other division that really holds up as far as running backs are concerned. I'm trying to think. The AFC East is no running back contest really. I guess maybe the AFC West. Excuse me, with you know, Leonard and Derrick Henry, and now they have the South, AFC South. And the Texans recently got David Johnson too. So if David Johnson comes back healthy, that might be one right there. So, you know, that might be a division. And of course, the Colts are in that division, weirdly enough. I don't know why. They're not the South. But you would think that because they went and got Jonathan Taylor and they had Marlon Mack already, Return of the Mack, that guy, they're probably up there. That's probably like 1, 2, and 3, like divisions as far as running backs.
Yeah. I'm gonna go a little outside the box here. I'm gonna say the AFC West has a very good group of running backs, because in Denver you have obviously Melvin Gordon, Flash Gordon, and Philip Lindsay, which I think is a very comparable duo. Remember, Oakland still has Josh Jacobs, who we saw how he was on a tear last year. You know, you also have Kansas City, you know, adding the LSU running back with Damian Williams from last year.
Clyde Edwards.
That's could be, Clyde Edwards. They'll be a very dangerous duo also in that division. And then obviously San Diego with Austin Eckler. So there's definitely a good comparable amount of running backs in the AFC West. It may not be top tier, but definitely a division we can't sleep on in terms of running backs that are out there.
Yeah, for sure. I just don't think they're the best. Because two of those guys ended up having one of their worst seasons, and they're on the same team now. Can you guess?
You talking about Melvin?
Yes, I am. And I was there for full front to see the season that Philip Lindsay decided to produce. I saw every point in fantasy just leave me and my soul. Philip Lindsay, shout out to that guy. But no, we don't really have time for one more until we could push to the next segment. But as far as other running backs across the league, we never really talked about the AFC North because, Nick Chubb is a absolute stud, and then there's James Conner. Mm-hmm. The whole Baltimore Ravens offense is just running, just runners.
Do we put Lamar in there?
No, we're not putting Lamar in the conversation. That's not fair. We don't put Lamar in there. But Mark Ingram is serviceable, and then they just went and got J.K. Dobbins in the draft from Ohio State. So that's definitely
got Gus Edwards.
Yeah, Gus Edwards does his thing. So there's those teams. Then the Bengals, of course, they have Joe Mixon. So running backs
he's a slept on guy.
Slept on for reasons. Okay, let's not pretend that it's not for good reasons. The Bengals' offensive line is horrible, and it's still pretty bad now. Like, we don't know how well it's going to be for Joe Burrow and the boys up there. But let's take another break, and coming out, we'll finish up this segment.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Okay, my turn to answer the questions, or I have been answering the questions, huh? My turn to ask the questions, Brice. It's my turn.
All right.
So, best defensive backs by division in the NFL. Go.
So, okay. I'm going to have to go with I believe, what is it? The AFC. It's the AFC East. I'm going to go to the AFC East because obviously Miami has two, Xavier Howard, Byron Jones. Patriots still have Stephon Gilmore. The Jets with Jamal Adams. And who's the other team I'm forgetting? Am I forgetting a team?
The Bills, sir.
Yeah, and Tre'Davious White with Buffalo. And that entire defense in general. But, he's obviously one of the top corners, if not the top corner in some people's mind in the league. You can honestly look at the entire AFC East as the DVU of the NFL right now. Everybody got a top number one shutdown corner on their team. And so it's clearly going to be very hard to pass against any team that you play from the AFC East because they always got somebody for your number one receiver. And that's a dangerous game to play when you're going against teams as crafty sometimes as New England can be in Buffalo and et cetera. So I believe the AFC East is probably the best defensive back division in all of the NFL. If we had to maybe go somewhere else with it as well, that's where it kind of gets a little tough for me. If I had to really pick a division, maybe potentially the AFC West, maybe, but they have more top flight safeties more than anything, with obviously Matthew and Derwin James, and I forgot who plays in Denver, but it's outside of the AFC East. I feel like it just really depends on, I guess, your flavor or who you like more when it comes to defensive backs in the NFL.
Yeah, that's true. I would say so. I think you hit the nail on the head on that one. There's really not, as far as just pure units of defensive backs, there's not a lot in the NFL that really compares. The Dallas Cowboys basically lost their secondary pretty quickly. In one offseason, they couldn't afford them. But that kind of segues into the idea of who has like the best defensive ends in football right now, or defensive line. So let's say defensive lines, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah.
and it's kind of, there's only really two divisions that could even qualify, in my opinion, for this. And one of them has the Giants in it, so it's really hard to put them on top because the Giants' defense is a mess. But the NFC West, outside of, the Cardinals, their defenses are pretty stacked, man. their front sevens are pretty lethal. Mm-hmm. Like, the 49ers front seven is disgusting. Like, that is the best front seven. The stuff I was seeing last year, as far as what they were able to do, that was pretty bad, man. They were going hard. And then, of course, Seattle has always had a pretty decent front seven behind Bobby Wagner and those guys. And then, of course, we all know about Aaron Donald. We all know about the Aaron Donald surprise. Like, he's going to come grab your quarterback and he looks like a linebacker and he plays defensive tackle. Is Robert Quinn still there or did he leave?
He was in Cowboys last year. He's on Chicago now, so yeah, he left.
Yeah, Robert Quinn's been gone. It's crazy.
And they just lost Dante Fowler too, so.
Yeah, so they can't pay anybody, but I still would. If you have Aaron Donald on your side, 9 times out of 10 you're going to be a lethal front seven. I think another good front seven unit, I'd have to say, it kind of starts bouncing around in the league, of course, but Dallas's front seven is really good. And Philly, when healthy, really has a good front seven. Their defense can be really serviceable. The Redskins are underrated front seven defense. I think a lot of people see Redskins and think bad, but their defense is serviceable, right? They have players out there.
Yeah, they definitely signed a lot of guys. Ron Rivera is definitely trying to get that defensive side of the ball right. Yeah,
and then when it comes from that side of the perspective, then you start to look at Pittsburgh and Baltimore. Their front sevens are pretty nasty. It starts to come in twos rather than threes as far as divisional front seven defenses are concerned. And it's really hard to keep a good defense together because that's when the money really starts to get crazy because defenders are starting to get paid for real. Like DBs get paid, defensive ends are getting paid, linebackers are getting paid. So, the Jets are going to be in a situation where soon enough they're going to have to really start paying some folks. Like, they already got to pay Jamal Adams. And the rest of their roster is still looking to get a piece of the check. And their front seven is no joke. The Bills' front seven is crazy. They can't stop the run. That's the one thing. They're not good at run defense. Or they weren't last year. But pass defense, they were phenomenal. And the Saints have a good run defense for a front seven. I didn't want to be a homer here. But when healthy, Marcus Davenport, Sheldon Rankins, that's big time. Cam Jordan, that's big time. Come on. That's pretty good. That's just their defensive line. Of course, we all know about the best linebacker in the division, Demario Davis. Well, it's a toss-up between him and what's his name in Tampa Bay? Levante Davis. Is that his name?
Well, dang. Okay. No Deion Jones love?
Listen, I like Deion Jones.
Deion Jones out here balling.
I left him out for a reason. I don't want to talk about Deion.
We need to go back to Thanksgiving.
Oh, man. Do we need to go back to who made the playoffs?
Oh, brother.
All right. And wait, I can't forget. Since I spoke about the playoffs, I can't really forget the ones that beat us. I guess Minnesota has a good defense, too. All right. Next question.
All right.
Next question.
All right. So, what is your thoughts on the best receiving core?
Now, the way you say that makes me think that you're including running backs in there too.
No, like wide receivers. We're not going to include running backs in this. We're going to say wide receivers strictly. Who just has the best vision of pure wide receivers.
It's the NFC South, and then it is the AFC West. That's it. End of story. So NFC South, Michael Thomas, Julio Jones, and on the other side of Julio Jones, on the other side of Michael Thomas is now Emmanuel Sanders, and then Julio is also partnered with his other running mate from Alabama in,
Calvin Ridley.
Yeah, I always forget his name. It just doesn't look like a name that you would see in football. But Calvin Ridley, and then DJ Morris, no slouch out there, over there in Carolina. And then, of course, we know Chris Godwin and, of course, Mike Evans. And let's not forget Jared Cook was over there as well, tight end, receiver guy. So NFC South is just if you had to be a DB in the NFC South, you got to be ready. You got to be ready for it because you're going to be in the gauntlet for a long time.
So basically, like NFC South versus AFC East would be a great matchup on offense defense, huh?
It would be a lot of offensive points being put up. I'll tell you that. Let's look at the AFC West. You know, you have the Kansas City Chiefs. The offense.
Basically, the offense.
Yeah, so, Travis Kelce, of course, Tyreek Hill, McCole Hardman is a speed demon himself. Those three guys alone on one team is already pretty problematic.
Then you got those Sammy in there.
Yeah, well, when he wants to play. Sammy Watkins had one reasonably good game all season long, then he disappeared into the playoffs. Then Oakland has some pretty good receivers. Of course, they have Darren Waller. They just got Jerry Jeudy, right? Mm-hmm. Or was it Jerry Jeudy? Did they get the other one?
Yeah, they got Jerry Jeudy.
Yeah, Jerry Jeudy. Then the Broncos got KJ Hamler. Already had Cortland Sutton. And
actually, sir, correction. The Raiders got Henry Ruggs.
That's what I thought. I thought I wasn't crazy.
My bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Broncos, I believe, got
Jerry Jeudy. But they're still in the same division, so it doesn't matter. So, so Henry Ruggs is there. And, it's going to – their wide receivers are pretty good. Then, of course, the Chargers, they have really, really good wide receivers. Hunter Henry, tight end.
Keenan Allen can stay healthy.
Yeah, Terrell Williams, if, he learns to not sprint downfield all the time and actually catch a ball, I think is real talented. But, yeah, man, that's it. How about we wrap this up? So, this has been the GSMC football podcast for today, I suppose. I didn't want to end it on a sour note for the Chargers fans out there, but hey, you just got caught by the shot clock. Shot clock violation. So, please, people, if you listen to us, if you like our content, please rate and review us. And don't forget to follow us on our social media handles. I believe ours is at GSMC_football. Tweet at us, man. Ask us some questions. We'll answer them. We'll engage. That's what we do here. Brice, any last words?
I'm just hanging there, and hopefully everything works out, man. Just got held out for maybe like another month, 2 months, bruh. Hopefully nothing comes up, and we get some training camp, and we get football going again.
Yeah, hopefully. We might see something. But for the GSMC, this is Ethan and Brice signing out. We'll see you all next week.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.